New American casualties in the war on terror. Journalist Daniel Pearl, kidnapped in Pakistan, has been murdered. And a U.S. Army helicopter with 12 on board crashes at sea in the Philippines. No survivors. Also tonight, shopping for a quality nursing home. The risk you take when you rely on a government website. And the debate over mammograms. Should a woman get one or not? Now, U.S. health officials weigh in.
This is the CBS Evening News, with Dan Rather reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening. Murderous terrorist violence and the war to stop it have claimed more American lives. As first reported this afternoon by CBS News, the kidnapped Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl has been murdered by his Pakistani captors. And in the Philippines, the U.S. Army holds out little hope tonight for 12 soldiers aboard a helicopter that crashed today at sea. First, Richard Roth in Pakistan on the end to the Daniel Pearl kidnapping. Richard?
Dan, the announcement came from the Wall Street Journal, a statement saying that based on reports from the State Department and from police officials here in Pakistan, the Journal now believes Daniel Pearl was killed by his captors. Confirmation from here quickly came from the U.S. Embassy. The 38-year-old American reporter disappeared January 23rd in the southern Pakistan city of Karachi. Photos emailed by his captors came with demands for ransom and the release of Taliban and al-Qaeda prisoners, and carried the warning he would be executed. The FBI quickly joined efforts by Pakistani police to find Pearl, and U.S. officials tell CBS News tonight it was a representation, which other sources say was a videotape obtained by the FBI in Pakistan that provided the evidence Pearl had been killed. A statement from the Wall Street Journal, Pearl's employer for the past 12 years, tonight called his murder an act of barbarism.
It makes a mockery of everything that Danny's kidnappers claim to believe in. They claim to be Pakistani nationalists, but their actions must surely bring shame to all true Pakistani patriots.
But just who they are is still a mystery. The police investigation rounded up suspects, including the British-born 28-year-old Sheikh Omar Saeed, an Islamic militant who admitted in a court hearing that he'd helped lure Pearl into a trap to protest Pakistan's alliance with the U.S. Saeed's in custody with a court hearing scheduled next week. Like the Journal, Pearl's wife Marianne, 7 months pregnant, said his abductors had picked the wrong man to make a point.
Use Danny as a symbol, and all of this is completely wrong, completely wrong.
Pearl's family called his death a senseless murder beyond comprehension.
We were shocked and saddened at the confirmation that our worst fears have been realized. Up until a few hours ago, we were confident that Danny would return safely, for we believed no human being would be capable of harming such a gentle soul.
For Pakistan and its President Pervez Musharraf, who just last week was still expressing confidence Pearl was alive and his kidnappers would be caught, what's now a high-profile murder case is also a stark warning of the problems the government here faces from militant Islamic opponents who've turned to terror. The State Department calls Daniel Pearl's murder an outrage and says the U.S. and Pakistan are committed to identifying and bringing to justice all the perpetrators of the crime. Dan?
Richard Roth in Islamabad, Pakistan. In China tonight, President Bush said he is deeply saddened by the news of Pearl's murder and added, I quote, "Those who threaten Americans and engage in criminal and barbaric acts only hurt their cause and deepen our resolve." Unquote. Facts about the U.S. Army helicopter crash in the southern Philippines today are few. The search continues tonight off the Philippine coast, but there seems little hope of finding any survivors. CBS's David Martin has the latest from the Pentagon.
American troops working with the Philippine Army in its war against the Abu Sayyaf terrorist group suffered their first casualties today when an MH-47 helicopter crashed with 12 aboard. The helicopter went down at sea while making a run between a support base and Basilan Island, where Abu Sayyaf is holding 2 Americans hostage. There is no sign the helicopter was brought down by enemy fire, but the 12 people aboard must be added to the growing list of unintended casualties in the war against terrorism. In Afghanistan, when U.S. Special Forces shot up 2 compounds north of Kandahar last month, They thought they had killed 16 Taliban and captured 27 more. But it turned out they were not Taliban, but friendly Afghan forces. The U.S. has already tried to make amends by handing out $100 bills to local villagers, but the Secretary of Defense says the Special Forces did nothing wrong because the Afghans shot first.
It seems to me it is no mistake at all, if you're fired on, to fire back. And we expect people to defend themselves.
An unclassified summary of the military's investigation says that at the first compound, most of the Afghanis dropped their weapons, others fled. Only those that shot at or clearly threatened U.S. forces were engaged, resulting in only 2 Afghanis killed. 14 were killed at the second compound, the summary says, but only after U.S. forces came under heavy fire. A critical fact questioned by a reporter who interviewed a guard at that compound 3 days after the raid.
He and others claim that there had been no fire out of the building at the Americans as they were approaching this building, which is in fact the only high school in the village.
This is one of a number of instances in which Afghan villagers have disputed the official version put out by the Pentagon. Earlier this month, an unmanned CIA drone fired a missile at 3 men U.S. officials say were senior al-Qaeda leaders, possibly including Osama bin Laden himself. Villagers say they were peasants collecting scrap metal. Remains recovered from the site are now at this Armed Forces laboratory being analyzed for DNA, while the State Department is asking Saudi Arabia to provide a DNA sample from bin Laden's relatives. But U.S. officials say the chances the samples will match are slim. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.